Sometimes the final betrayal doesn't come from enemies, it comes with a smile from your own blood. My name is Olivia Monroe, and for most of my life, I believed loyalty would eventually be rewarded, especially in families. Turns out, I was wrong. It came on a Thursday morning, tucked between two client sessions. The subject line alone, bold, unapologetic, punched the breath out of my lungs. "You're not welcome at the wedding. We all agreed." No salutation, no soft landing, just that headline, like a verdict I didn't even know I was on trial for. I stared at it for a solid minute, hoping maybe it was spam, a prank, something other than what it was. My younger sister Sarah's final act of betrayal. The worst part? The "we" in that sentence. That quiet confirmation that this wasn't just her decision. My parents, our parents, agreed with her. Let me take you back, just briefly. Sarah was always the golden girl. She was born 2 years after me, but our parents acted like she came from a different galaxy, one that revolved around her smile. She was the ballerina, the debate champion, the one they took to Disneyland twice, while I stayed home with a babysitter and a vague excuse about tight budgets. When Mom got sick during my senior year of high school, I put college on pause. They didn't ask. They didn't need to. I cooked, I cleaned, I managed her meds. Dad worked overtime to cover bills. Sarah? She joined a summer theater camp out of state. By the time I finally made it to college, community college, I was already behind. No dorm experience, no parties, no road trips. Just nights of online classes and part-time work, while Sarah, fresh out of a private liberal arts degree funded by a family fund, posted brunch selfies from the East Coast. And now she was getting married. To a man I introduced her to. Mark was my friend first. We met at a professional workshop 3 years ago. I brought him to a 4th of July barbecue at home. Within a year, they were dating. No one even blinked. So when the wedding planning began, I waited for her to call, to ask me to be her maid of honor, to include me in something. Instead, I got this email. I didn't reply right away. I reread it 5 times, then forwarded it to my therapist with nothing but a question mark. Then I called my mom. She picked up on the third ring, her tone unnervingly normal. "Hi, honey," she said, like she hadn't just exiled me from a family event. "Everything okay?" "You agreed to this?" I asked. My voice was steady. Too steady. Mom hesitated. "Sarah just didn't want any tension on her big day. You know how you two can be." I blinked. "Tension?" She sighed like I was being difficult again. "You're intense, Olivia. You always have been. This wedding is supposed to be joyful. We don't want drama." There it was. Not just exclusion, blame. Like I had brought this on myself by refusing to shrink. I hung up before she could finish her next sentence. And then I cried. Not because I was sad, but because the illusion had finally shattered. I wasn't part of this family. I was tolerated until I became inconvenient. That weekend, I drove out to the Oregon coast. Wind, waves, and fog were easier companions than people. I brought a notebook and wrote 3 things. I'm done being their scapegoat. I'm no longer asking to belong. I don't need revenge. I need reckoning. I didn't know then how far I'd take that third one. But that email wasn't the end. It was the first move in a very quiet war. And I wasn't going to lose it. I didn't plan to investigate my parents. It started with a question that wouldn't leave me alone. Where did Sarah get the money for her wedding? A custom Vera Wang gown, a vineyard venue, and an 11-piece jazz band don't come cheap, even for a couple with 2 full-time jobs. Mark had always lived comfortably, but not extravagantly. And Sarah? She'd been job hopping since college. An unpaid internship here, a social media consultant gig there. Nothing long-term, nothing stable. She had dreams, not paychecks. But that wedding? That was money. Old money. Strategic money. Money someone had been saving a long time. And for some reason, I had a hunch that someone was supposed to be me. The file cabinet in my parents' den wasn't locked. It was the same mahogany chest I'd dusted every week during Mom's chemo, back when I did everything I could to keep the house running while Sarah was finding herself in Vermont. I waited until Sunday night. My parents went to bed early after church and wine. I still had the key to the house, and if they really didn't want me there, maybe they shouldn't have left a photo of me on the mantel. Inside the cabinet, the manila folder was labeled in my mother's loopy cursive, "College Fund, Olivia." My hands trembled as I pulled it out. I had no idea what I was hoping to find. Maybe records of a savings account that had quietly grown over the years. Maybe a final balance I could marvel at, to remind myself they hadn't always ignored me. Instead, I found depletion, withdrawals, notarized forms. The account had been drained 5 years ago, right around the time Sarah moved back home after her third failed job search, right before she posted that Instagram story from Santorini, captioned, "Grateful for second chances and family who believe in your dreams." I remember that trip. I remember asking Mom how Sarah could afford it. She said, "Sarah's learning how to be independent." But here it was in black and white. My college fund had become Sarah's lifestyle bank. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit the corner of the folder. Back at my apartment, I called my best friend Elise. "Say that again," she said, her voice slow with disbelief. "They used my college fund to send Sarah to Greece, to fund her apartment in LA, even part of her car lease." Elise was silent for a beat. "Olivia, that's theft." "No," I whispered. "It's family." But even I didn't believe it. The next morning, I woke up sick. Not flu sick, soul sick. My body ached with betrayal. I sat at my desk, looking at a photo from college graduation. I had put myself through night school, scholarships, student loans, double shifts, and through it all, I thought, they're proud of me, they just don't say it much. Now I knew the truth. They weren't proud. They were relieved. Because I did the work, so Sarah didn't have to. By Wednesday, I had printed everything. I made copies of the documents, screenshots of the dates, the account numbers. I even found a wire transfer from Monroe Household Education account to a travel agency Sarah had tagged in a now-deleted post. Mykonos Moods. I slid everything into a binder. Not because I wanted to confront them, not yet. I needed to understand the full picture first, not just the money, but the mindset. How long had I been invisible? I started writing, a timeline, not just of the financials, but the favoritism, the patterns. Every time I covered for Sarah, every holiday where she wasn't feeling up to it, but still got gifts, every fight where I was labeled too emotional, too intense, too much. What I was building wasn't revenge, it was truth. Truth they couldn't spin. On Friday, I went to see them. My parents lived in a cul-de-sac with manicured lawns and neighbors who waved politely, but never lingered. Their house smelled like cinnamon and lavender, like nothing ever went wrong inside it. Mom answered the door. She blinked. "Olivia, we weren't expecting you." "I know," I said and stepped inside. Dad was reading the paper. He lowered it slowly, as if preparing for a monologue, but I didn't give him the chance. "I found the records," I said. They both froze. "I know about the college fund. I know where it went. I know how many times you told me we couldn't afford things while Sarah was taking yoga retreats and spa weekends." Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. Dad cleared his throat. "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think," I cut in. "And you know what's worse? You let me believe I was the burden. You watched me struggle, scrape together tuition, turn down offers, while you funneled my future into her fantasy." Mom reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for clarity, and trust me, this is just the beginning." The air in my apartment had a stillness that felt manufactured, like a film set that hadn't been used in weeks. I sat by the window, binder open on my lap, eyes scanning every copied bank statement and tuition document again, even though I'd already memorized them. I wasn't looking for more proof. I was looking for something else now, something deeper than stolen money. Intent. And somewhere in that intent, I hoped I'd find my freedom. A week after confronting my parents, Sarah posted a glowing bridal shower recap on Instagram. Roses everywhere. A tower of champagne flutes. Matching satin robes with glittery names like bride and maid of honor. My name wasn't among them. Scrolling through the photos, I stopped at one shot. Sarah with her arms around a woman named Jenna. They'd gone to college together, I remembered vaguely. Jenna had a reputation for being the fun one, the risk taker. Back in the day, she once got suspended for hacking into the university email system to prank the dean. A charmer, dangerous if bored. I had to know more. I messaged Jenna that night. Me. Hey, this is Olivia, Sarah's sister. Long time no see. Any chance we could talk? She replied within 5 minutes. Jenna. Wow, I thought you hated me. Me. I didn't. I was just filtered out of her life. Jenna. Welcome to the club. Want to talk in person? We met at a dive bar off Hawthorne, far from anything vineyard chic. Jenna showed up in jeans and boots, hair in a messy bun, and ordered whiskey like she was still in a dorm somewhere. You look exactly the same, she said, sipping. Less exhausted, though. College Olivia looked like she was surviving a war. I smiled thinly. Turns out I was. She leaned in. So, what's this about? I pulled the folder from my tote. My parents emptied my college fund to finance Sarah's wedding, and a lot of other things. Jenna's brows rose. Jesus! And I think Sarah's hiding more than just that. Jenna stared at the documents, flipping through slowly. Then she laughed, but it wasn't light. She always got away with things, didn't she? She said. You know, there was this thing with Mark. My breath caught. What thing? Well, let's just say he wasn't her first pick. When they started dating, she was still kind of seeing someone else, from work. I blinked. Are you sure? She used to vent to me, said Mark was safe, the kind of guy who could give her the life she wanted. But she missed the thrill. She was sleeping with her team lead at the nonprofit where she worked. Greg, I think? He was married. A nausea rolled through me. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. I opened my phone and pulled up Mark's profile. His last post was a smiling selfie with Sarah at their cake tasting. The caption said, "Can't wait to marry my best friend." I wanted to scream. I don't know if you want to get involved, Jenna said quietly. But if you're looking to level the playing field, I've got something. She scrolled through her phone, then passed it to me. It was a screenshot from 2 years ago. A text message from Sarah to Jenna. Sarah. Mark's boring. I miss Greg's hands. But this wedding will fix everything. He's so gullible. The date on the message? The same week Mark proposed. I stared at it for a long time. Can I get a copy of this? Already emailed it to you, Jenna said. Just be careful. Sarah's the kind of girl who burns the village down if she thinks she's losing the crown. Back home, I stared at that message again. This was bigger than petty family dynamics now. Sarah was using Mark, my friend, someone who'd trusted me once, long before I introduced them. And now, I was the only one who knew the truth. I spent hours writing and rewriting a message to Mark. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure how to begin something that could unravel so much. I owed him the truth, but I also knew he wouldn't believe me right away. Not without proof. Not if he was in deep. Instead, I hit send on a different message. 2. Mark, subject. For your eyes only. We haven't talked in a while, but there's something I think you need to see. It's not about me. It's about Sarah. I'm sorry. Attached. The screenshot. 2 days passed with no reply. Then, on the third night, my phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. Mark. Meet me, tomorrow, 10 a.m., Riverbank Cafe. The Riverbank Cafe was quiet when I arrived. Mark sat by the window with a black coffee, staring at it like it might offer answers. When he saw me, he didn't smile. Is it true? He asked. I nodded. She said you were jealous, he added. Of what? I asked. Being erased? He looked down, jaw clenched. Then he slid his phone across the table. Another message from Sarah. This one just hours after I sent mine. Sarah. Olivia's unstable. She's trying to ruin the wedding. Please don't engage. I felt my heart drop, and then rise with a wave of something stronger. Ask her about Greg, I said. Mark didn't respond right away, but his silence spoke volumes. The worst thing about betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the silence that follows. The stillness after the bomb has dropped, when you realize the people you've loved the longest are the ones who taught you how to bleed quietly. I couldn't sleep after my meeting with Mark. My mind kept circling the same thought. If Sarah had manipulated him into marriage, what else was she planning to control? Was this wedding just a ceremony, or a trap dressed in tulle? I poured myself a drink at 2 a.m., sat on the floor in my living room, and opened my laptop. Not for distraction, for strategy. If Sarah's entire life was a performance, this wedding was her grand finale. And I was going to make sure she remembered the cost of her spotlight. The next morning, I called Elise. Are you sitting down? I asked. Why? Is Sarah pregnant? Or joining a cult? She replied. Worse, I said. She's about to get exactly what she wants, unless we do something. Over coffee and documents laid out like puzzle pieces, Elise and I talked plans. We weren't plotting revenge for the sake of pain. We were plotting truth. What's the goal? She asked, fingers tapping the rim of her mug. I didn't hesitate. I want them to see her, all of them, without the costume. You mean at the wedding? I nodded. Elise smiled slowly. Then we're gonna need a bigger stage. 2 weeks before the wedding, I RSVP'd no. It shocked no one. But it served a purpose. With me officially out of the picture, Sarah lowered her guard. She posted more, tagged locations, even bragged in a caption. Some people just can't handle joy. That line stuck with me. Like joy was a weapon she wielded. Mark went silent. I didn't expect updates from him. I had dropped the match and walked away. It was his choice whether to burn it down. But I wasn't done. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Aunt Rachel, my mom's estranged younger sister. She'd left town decades ago after falling out with my grandparents over something never spoken aloud. I always remembered her as the only adult who looked me in the eyes when I talked as a kid. I found her on Facebook. Me. Hi, Aunt Rachel. I know it's been a while. I need to ask you something. About our family. Can we talk? She replied the next day with a phone number and a simple message. If it's about your mother, then yes, let's talk. Rachel didn't mince words. Your mom was always obsessed with image, she said. She made your dad buy a new car the week they filed for bankruptcy because she didn't want the neighbors to know. I found out they emptied my college fund, I said quietly. Rachel laughed, bitter. Not surprised. You were always the backup plan. What do you mean? She had you so Sarah wouldn't be alone. You were the buffer. She told me once that if you turned out too smart, it might throw off Sarah's shine. That's when I cut ties. The ache in my chest was immediate. My breath shortened. She said that? She did. And Olivia, listen to me. You are not what they made you believe. I pressed the phone to my ear harder, holding on to that sentence like a raft. Elise and I designed the plan like it was a script, because Sarah always treated life like a performance. We started with whispers, comments on her public posts from anonymous accounts, pointing to her affair with Greg. Enough to make her paranoid, but not enough to call it sabotage. Then came the photos. We didn't post them. We sent them, anonymously, to one of Mark's groomsmen. Just a taste. Sarah and Greg, arm in arm, exiting a hotel. Dated, time-stamped, unmistakable. The wedding was a week away, and the pressure was mounting. 3 nights before the wedding, I got a text from Mark. Mark, I know what I have to do, but it's going to be messy. Me. Truth usually is. The rehearsal dinner was held at a private estate in Napa. High hedges, champagne towers, a pianist playing acoustic versions of Beyoncé songs. The kind of elegance that's less about love and more about optics. I wasn't invited, but Elise was. She'd gotten a +1 through a mutual friend who knew someone on the catering team. She wore a pale blush dress, kept her head down, and recorded everything. That night, she sent me a clip. Sarah stood giving a speech, glowing in candlelight, thanking everyone for being part of her dream day. Her voice trembled just enough to seem authentic. People clinked glasses. Then Mark stood up. He took the mic, cleared his throat, and looked right at Sarah. "I was going to make this speech tomorrow," he said, "but I think it's better now. I've always believed love should be honest. So, in that spirit." Sarah's face froze. The clip cut there. I didn't hear from Mark for 2 days. Then came the headline: Runaway Groom. CEO's son cancels wedding hours before ceremony. The article detailed personal reasons and irreconcilable revelations. Photos showed the vineyard, empty chairs, a dismantled altar. One image showed Sarah in her robe, standing alone, mid-sob, hair in curlers, mascara streaked down her cheek. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just closed my laptop and let the silence say what words couldn't. When the wedding collapsed, the news spread faster than any announcement Sarah had ever posted. The glittering fairy tale she'd curated online for years shattered in real time. Tweets, TikToks, gossip blogs. She disappeared from the internet overnight. But silence, in families like mine, is never peace. It's plotting. A week later, my mother called. "Your father and I would like to talk. Face to face." I considered ignoring it. But something about her voice, it wasn't guilt. It was control wearing a mask of civility. That same sugary coldness I'd grown up around. "I'll come," I said, "but only if we meet at your place. My turf, my rules." Her silence stretched. "Fine," she replied. Saturday, noon. They arrived together, as always. My father carrying a tin of pastries like peace could be sugar-coated. My mother in pearls, posture perfect, eyes scanning for flaws. We sat in the living room, no greetings, no small talk. Mom started. "We're deeply concerned about your behavior." I blinked. "My behavior?" She nodded, folding her hands like she was chairing a board meeting. "This vendetta, it's not healthy. Sarah is in therapy. The public humiliation. I didn't make her sleep with a married man, lie to her fiancé, or drain my college fund." Dad flinched. "Good." Mom pressed on. "Families survive by keeping certain things private." "And sometimes," I said, "they survive by telling the truth." Then she played her card. "We've reviewed the trust. You know, the one Grandma Monroe left for the grandchildren? We've decided to reallocate it." I laughed. "You mean take it from me and hand it to Sarah?" "It's not like that," Dad said quietly. "No?" I turned to him. "Tell me exactly what it's like then. Tell me how she gets rewarded for destroying lives, while I get rewritten out of the family narrative." "She's hurting," Mom said, voice sharp, "and you've made it worse." That was the moment, the final moment. I stood up slowly. "I hope you remember this conversation. I hope one day, when you're alone and wondering how things got so broken, you come back to this moment." I walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a folder I'd kept ready since the week after the wedding. Inside, printouts of financial mismanagement, trust fund irregularities, and documents I'd gathered with the help of Elise and an old college friend who now worked in estate law. I placed it on the coffee table. "If you touch that trust," I said, "this goes to the board, to the state, to everyone." My mother paled. She reached for the folder, but I stopped her. "Copies," I said. 3 of them, with 3 different people and 1 lawyer. Dad sat back like the weight finally hit him. "You wouldn't," Mom started. "I would," I said. "I will." They left without another word. When the door clicked shut, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like months. Not in relief, but in reclaiming oxygen I didn't realize I'd been denied. That night, I stood by my bedroom window, phone in hand. I typed and retyped a message to Sarah. Then I deleted it. Instead, I posted a single sentence on a private blog I'd started under a pen name. What we inherit isn't just money, it's silence. And silence, unchecked, becomes a weapon. 2 weeks passed after the wedding imploded, and the silence was not comforting. It was foreboding. Then it came. A thin white envelope slipped through my mail slot. No return address, just my name, typed neatly in a serif font. Inside, a cease and desist letter from a Los Angeles law firm representing Sarah, claiming defamation, character assassination, intentional interference with economic relationships. The tone was clinical, but the message was personal. She wasn't just embarrassed anymore. She wanted blood. Elise read the letter over my shoulder and scoffed. She really thinks she can sue you for exposing the truth? She's trying to scare me, I said, or silence me. She's never liked being seen for who she really is. I stared at the final line of the letter. Our client reserves the right to pursue additional damages should these attacks continue. She's using the Monroe name like it's armor, I whispered, still pretending our family brand has weight. Elise tilted her head. Maybe it does. Or maybe it's just never been challenged by someone who knows how to break it apart from the inside. That night, I opened the locked chest in my closet. Inside, old family journals, photographs, legal papers, the messy roots of a name that meant nothing to me until now. The Monroes had money, generations of it, but what they really preserved was reputation. Country club memberships, real estate quietly held in LLCs, political donations made for access, not ideals. And in the middle of it, my parents, gatekeepers of a myth. I called Aunt Rachel. She picked up on the first ring. You ready? You knew this was coming? I told you, she said. You expose Sarah, and you shake the whole scaffolding. She's threatening to sue me, Rachel sighed. That's not her, that's your mother. Silence. Then she added, Your mom sent me a letter just like that in '92, after I spoke out about Dad's investments in the defense contracts. I swallowed. You think she'll follow through? No, but she's betting you think she will. That weekend, I booked a meeting with a journalist, someone Elise knew from a podcast series on generational wealth and whistleblowers. We met in a glassy downtown cafe, the kind where every surface gleamed, but no one made eye contact. I laid out my story, not as a revenge tale, but as an ecosystem of silence. A system where one daughter's compliance bought her diamonds and the other's resistance cost her identity. The journalist leaned forward, eyes sharp. You're saying this isn't just about a wedding. It's about the way legacy is manipulated to cover abuse. It's about how family becomes a brand and how that brand devours the people inside it. 2 days later, I got a call. Private number. I answered. Olivia? My mother's voice was colder than the marble foyer I'd grown up in. I see what you're doing, she said, dragging our name through the mud for attention. It's not about attention, I said. It's about truth. There's a way back, you know. You could apologize. We could restore things. We could... There's no restoration, I said. Not without acknowledgement. Not without accountability. She went quiet. Then, flatly, You'll regret this. And she hung up. I stared at my phone, pulse steady. No shaking, no fear, just clarity. That was the moment I realized. My mother didn't want me silent for the sake of the family. She wanted me silent so the illusion could live. But I wasn't theirs anymore. I was my own. The morning after the phone call, I stood by the window of my apartment with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Outside, Portland was waking up, soft light on rooftops, the hum of delivery trucks, dogs barking down the block. It looked like any other day. But inside me, something seismic had shifted. I wasn't mourning anymore. I was choosing, not just to walk away, but to rebuild from scratch. 3 weeks had passed since the story ran. The journalist had titled it, Branded, What Happens When Families Become Corporations. It wasn't viral, But it didn't have to be. The right people read it. Whispers traveled through LinkedIn threads, law school alumni boards, nonprofit networks. Not because of scandal, but because the essay struck a nerve. In a world obsessed with legacy, few people were talking about the cost of preserving it. I was invited onto a podcast next, then a panel, a closed Zoom session with young women from legacy families who cried quietly as they shared how they were written out for not complying. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about me. Sarah, meanwhile, was silent. The lawsuit never materialized. Her lawyer withdrew representation. My mother's social calendar thinned. A country club canceled her speaking event. My father took an early retirement and stopped returning my calls. None of that felt like victory. It felt like release. A pressure valve finally untwisted. One afternoon, I met with Aunt Rachel again. She brought photos, old ones, of me as a child. Birthday parties I didn't remember. A blurry shot of me in overalls, blowing bubbles in a garden I didn't recognize. "I took that the weekend your mom grounded you for drawing on the wall," she said. "I was 5, I laughed. "She said you were out of control. I thought you were brilliant." I stared at the photo. "Did you ever wish you had stayed in the family?" I asked. Rachel shook her head. "I built something better, smaller, but honest." "Is it lonely?" I asked. She took a long sip of tea. "Less lonely than pretending." That night, I took down every framed photo in my hallway. All the Monroe Christmas portraits, the Easter church photos, the smiling group shots where I stood on the edge, never quite fitting in. In their place, I pinned moments that told the truth. Me, barefoot in Iceland, arms wide in the wind. Elise and I on the beach, laughing mid-sunset. My therapy license. A sticky note that read, "You are not hard to love." They were hard to please. And one final photo. A Polaroid I'd taken of Aunt Rachel, holding a coffee mug that said, "Not today, patriarchy." Months passed. My blog, under my real name now, became a hub for others. Adult children of narcissists, survivors of legacy trauma, even quiet allies from inside other prominent families who couldn't speak. Yet, I started a group. A real one. We met monthly at a rented art studio downtown. Not to vent, but to plan. To share tools. To reimagine what family could mean. And then, one Saturday, someone new walked in. Her name was Kayla, 23, eyes tired but defiant. She clutched a notebook like it was armor, and sat silently until the very end, when she finally raised her hand. "I haven't talked to my mother in 2 years," she said, "but I still hear her voice every time I try to say something good about myself." The room fell quiet. I knelt beside her and said softly, "That voice doesn't belong to you, and one day it'll get quieter." She looked up at me like she wanted to believe. Not long after, I got a letter in the mail, from Sarah. It wasn't long. No apologies, just 4 sentences. "You got what you wanted. I hope it was worth it. I'll never forgive you, but I know you won't care." I didn't. I slid the letter into a drawer and didn't open it again. 6 months after everything, I returned to the family house for the first time. Not to reconcile. To retrieve something I'd left in the attic, my grandmother's quilt, hand-stitched, the only object from childhood that ever felt like safety. The house was quiet. Mom was out. Dad greeted me with eyes like wet concrete. He didn't speak. At the door, he said, "You always were the difficult one." I smiled. "No, Dad," I said. "I was just the only one who didn't lie." And I left. The quilt now sits on the back of my couch, soft and worn. Not because I need to remember the past, but because I reclaimed it on my terms. Family isn't blood. It's not loyalty to pain. It's the people who look at your mess, your scars, your sharp edges, and choose you anyway. In the end, I didn't just walk away from a toxic family. I walked into myself. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that healing doesn't always come with apologies, and closure doesn't always look like reconciliation. You don't owe your silence to anyone who demands it in exchange for love. If this story reminded you of something you've lived through or helped you see something more clearly, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does family mean to you now? Have you ever had to redefine it on your own terms? If this video spoke to your heart, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't, that's okay too. Let me know what didn't connect for you and why. Your voice matters here. And if you want more real, raw, and powerful stories like this one, make sure to hit subscribe and be part of this growing community. You're not alone, and your story might be the next one that helps someone else heal.